talk about this ruling now about the Tavistock Clinic, because I think it's a really important one, actually. And I was doing the talk last night with Sharon Osbourne and Vanessa and others, and I was very careful about what I said yesterday. And I've really ruminated overnight on it. And essentially, if you're just catching up with this, it's a really big headline, which is the Tavistock Transgender Clinic was shut down by the NHS after a review found it was not safe for children. And this is really important for me, because this was a review that was carried out by Dr. Hilary Cash. She's a consultant paediatrician and former president of the Royal College of Paediatrics. And essentially what this did is it looked at what was going on in this particular centre. Now, when you looked at the number of referrals, when you look back to 10 years ago, 250 young people were referred there. When you look at last year and the year before, that had gone from 250 up to 5,000. And that made me really worried that actually there was something horribly wrong with what was going on. And that clinic is now going to be shut. It was the only gender identity clinic for children, and it was established some 30 years ago. Now, what has come out of that is it appears that this was based on faith and ideology. It was an echo chamber. It seemed the doctors just didn't seem to question what was going on. And I, for one, am very pleased with that decision. It really feels to me like an adult is in charge, and suddenly we have clarity on this particular matter. Well, joining me now is Helen Joyce. She's Director of Advocacy at Sex Matters. Good afternoon to you.
Thank you so much for having me on. That was a great summary. I agree with everything you said there.
That's very kind. Thank you very much. I mean, I think we've all become very sensitive about trans issues. I think many people don't say anything because they're so worried they're going to offend someone. And certainly as a doctor myself, I've really thought very carefully about this particular issue. And I think this is the right decision. It feels to me like we've put a line in the sand, and actually now we have to be very objective, work on evidence, but also understand children are confused. That is normal and natural.
Yeah, so what Hilary Cass has said in her interim report, her review is ongoing and it doesn't finish until next year, is that she was very worried about what she called diagnostic overshadowing, which is that as soon as a kid who may have many other issues, the kids who are seen by the Tavistock, really high proportion of them have, autistic spectrum disorder, anxiety, self-harm, eating disorders, loneliness, depression, history of child abuse, all these issues. As soon as that child says gender, people are terrified, like you say. They don't want anybody saying that they're committing conversion therapy or that they're transphobic. And their doctors refer them to this clinic at the Tavistock, where they're put onto a massive waiting list and nobody's helping them with their other problems. And that clinic has been running on super ideological lines. It really has not been looking at evidence. In the Kira Bell case, we heard in court that they didn't keep proper records. They weren't doing any research into how puberty blockers work. They were just affirming kids who come in and say something that may be very passing, like I feel like I'm trans, but that child may not continue to feel like they're trans. So yeah, it was a poor clinic, poorly run, very ideological, and now what's going to happen is that treatment is going to be integrated better with general mental health services for kids. So a kid who has other problems will be talking about those other problems as well. Gender may not really be the issue.
No. I think you've said that very eloquently indeed. In fact, talking to or listening to some of the doctors who work there, they flagged this. They flagged this many years ago. They were very concerned about the way that these treatment protocols were carried out. When you look back, 40% of those referred to this clinic started puberty blockers. Now, that is something as a medic you do not do lightly. You are essentially changing the biochemistry of these young people's bodies. And what I find extraordinary is the service director, Dr. Polly Carmichael, said they were just a pause button.
She said that on telly. She said it on children's telly. She went on a children's TV show for the BBC some years ago, about 2014, I think, or maybe it was 2017. And they literally had this babyish graphic with pink brains in blue bodies and blue brains in pink bodies. And Polly Carmichael said, some children are born in the wrong body, which is nonsense. You are your body. You can't be born in the wrong body. And that puberty blockers were a pause button while you tried to work out what to do. And then not coincidentally, we see trans identification soar. And the other thing that Polly does is absolutely minimise the idea of regret. So some of these kids are starting to come back, like Kira Bell did, and say, what did you do to me?
Oh, I think we've lost you there just for a quick moment. We'll try and get back in touch with Helen Joyce there. I mean, interestingly, there were lots and lots of warning signs, not least these 40% of referrals that ended up having puberty blockers. Let's join Helen very quickly again. Helen, you've joined us again. Are you back? Oh, no, you're not. And also, one of the other things, one of the big warning signs was the fact they were failing to consider the mental health issues. And also, as she was saying, as Helen was saying, that many of these children actually had a spectrum disorder, so ADHD. And the problem was that no one really asked the right questions. What I think is extraordinary is that the NHS now could be banned from giving puberty blockers. I think we need to have very, very urgent research on these drugs because we simply do not know what they do in the long term. And of course, now, anyone going on those drugs will be included in a clinical trial, and that is very, very important. I think this is a very good ruling for common sense, and for once I see common sense winning out, and that is very, very good to see. This is TalkTv.